Hi guys, welcome to my channel, all things fashion, beauty, and faith. These are my fabrics of choice today, because guess what? I'm making doll clothes. Today, I'll be working with a pattern. Now, I hand drafted this pattern. It's very simple, very easy, but you can also freestyle this design. You do not need a pattern. All you need is a good eye, a steady hand, and some good scissors. I'm pinning my pattern down to my fabric so that I can go ahead and cut it out. You can also use fabric weights. If you have those handy, that'll work just fine. Here, I'm going to begin to cut out my pattern. What you see me cutting here is for the skirt. It is the bottom half of my dress creation that I am making today. So I'm just cutting neatly around the pattern. Seam allowance has already been included, so no need to add that. I want to say this is about 9 inches long, 3 inches wide, maybe a little bit over, but you can guesstimate it as you play with this and as you begin to make your own creations. You'll get an idea of what works and what doesn't. And there you have it. I have my bottom skirt cut and ready to go. I'm not done yet though. I do have a top half of the dress that needs to be cut, so I'm just removing the excess fabric so I can cut the top. When I say top, I mean the top bodice of the dress. Now you're going to cut your bodice top on the fold of the fabric. So you're just going to take a piece of denim fabric, fold it in half, and place your pattern piece on the center on the fold. Let's say that again. You're going to take a piece of folded denim, your pattern piece, you will put the center on the fold so that when you cut it out, you're going to have one full piece that is proportioned on both sides. This prevents you from having to cut two pattern pieces. Instead, you will end up with one whole piece. I am making a snip here just for tiny little darts. That's just going to help me with fit. Now, I know it's not going to be perfect, but I'll be able to adjust the bodice top to my doll. Okay, as you can see, my piece is done. My dart didn't quite cut there, so I'm going to snip that again. Not sure what happened with that. Another snippety, and hopefully this works this time. Since I'm working with such a small surface, I'm just going to cut that dart right open. That is going to save me time. You can feel free to pin your darts together on both sides and sew them separately. But we're working with such little fabric, it may get caught up in the sewing machine. If you're not using a sewing machine, you can definitely hand sew this. I am going to use my machine, so that's why I am cutting it open, and I'm just going to sew each dart separately. Now there you go. Now as you can see, my darts are open. This is for both sides. That will allow you to move your fabric a lot easier according to the bodice of your doll. Okay? And then you can fit it more perfectly to her shape. When you sew it, you're just going to sew at a diagonal up against that. Now I'm going to serge around the entire bottom piece of my skirt. This will ensure that I have a clean, neat edge. That'll cut down all the cleanup also. When I say cleanup, I'm referring to trimming off the excess pieces when the fabric frays. This can be because of the type of fabric that you're using. I'm using denim, so it's definitely fraying. Here, I'm just going to continue to work my way around the edges of the fabric, all 4 side styes. Now, this is just so that I have a clean edge with a nice overlock stitch. This will prevent any fraying. If you don't have a serger, you can also use your sewing machine. Using a zigzag or overlock stitch on your sewing machine will do the same job. You can try using pinking shears, but with this fabric, the denim may fray. So that is the only reason why I did not use a pinking shear. But if you feel comfortable with pinking shears, have at it. Alright, this is my last and final side, and then she'll be ready to go. I'm just going to snip off the remaining edge, then I'll move on to my next piece. This is what it looks like at the end, guys. See? Nice and clean. Now I have the top part of the dress, and I am going to do the exact same thing, except for this time I will not sew across the bottom where the darts are. Why? Because I need to sew those darts into place. If I were to go around the bottom half, I would have to cut into that thread, and that will defeat the purpose. So I'm going to just sew around the sides, and then I'll follow up and close up my darts. Whoops, I realized I went backwards there. I should have started on the other side. See, no worries. It looks just fine for what I'm about to do. So next, I'm going to fold over my hem and sew it down using my sewing machine. You see that? Fold it over right where that serger edge is. I am going to tuck that little piece in at the end, but for now, I'm lining it up. I'm just going right on top, right in the center of that serger thread. There we go. Here's me tucking it for a cleaner, neater finish. Now, I'm starting off without pins, but eventually you'll see me switch over to pinning it in place. I didn't feel like ironing. That's just me cutting corners, but if you want to iron your pieces as you go, you can totally do that. Me, I'm just trying to move very quickly through this. And so I'm going to fold it over and sew right down the middle. I'll add some pins in the end and finish it off. Oops, I got a little off center there. So here's where I decided to stop and start over. I'm going to add some pins, and then I'm going to continue my line straight down the middle. I just didn't want it to be crooked because it will be crooked. So because I went off a little, I'm going to start again. But this time, like I said before, I'm going to pin it in place, and hopefully that will help me to keep a straight line. Now that I have my pins in place, I'm going to continue to sew where I left off, beginning exactly where I ended my last stitch is where I will begin my next stitch, and then I will continue down the folded edge to till I get to the very end. This is going to give me a nice clean hem line on my skirt. Here, I'm just using my seam ripper to remove the excess thread for where I veered off just a bit off of that original stitch. So what I'm doing now is pinning my pleats into place so that I can sew on top of them. The pleats will be in the front of the dress bottom or skirt bottom. Now guys, I'm totally freestyling this, okay? What you're going to do is put about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 little pleats in that bottom skirt. You're going to do this to fit your doll's waist, but you also want to make sure that it's going to fit up against the bottom half of the bodice of the dress. It'll make more sense once I show it to you, but for now, 3 to 4 little pleats in the front, right in the center to fit the bottom dress. You're going to want to also place it up against your doll to make sure that it's centered and it fits correctly. As you can see here, I've decided to add a few more pleating in there, and I'm going to adjust it again just so that I can get that perfect fit that I desire. Going in for a second try. Hopefully this is to my liking. It is much better. So here I am, just adding a few more pleats so that I can get the ultimate perfect fit. Don't worry, I will not make you sit through all of this. Let's just speed it up a little bit. On to sewing my darts closed. I'm going to use my sewing machine because it'll be a quick and easy stitch. You can also hand sew and close up your darts perfectly fine. Since you're working with such a tiny piece of fabric, it might be even easier for you because sometimes our fabric likes to get caught in the feed, and that can be no fun. So if a hand stitch works for you, go right ahead and do it. This is how it will turn out, you see? Now, what you're going to do next is place fabric facing one another with the top edge of your skirt to the bottom edge of your bodice, front facing each other, meaning the back half of your fabric of your top should be up and the denim to denim side should be facing each other. That's with any fabric, any print. Now, what I'm going to do is pin my bodice top to the top of the bottom of my skirt. My pleats are still pinned in place. I'm just going to adjust them so that everything is all lined up and in order. Here's a better look. Again, I'm just placing my top to the bottom of my skirt. I'm going to adjust my pins, keeping my pleats intact. If you have to add extra pins, that is completely fine. I've already decided that I am going to hand sew this instead of trying to sew it on the machine, only because it's a little thick and I don't want my fabric to get caught up in my sewing machine. So this will be just a little bit easier for me to hand sew it. So that is what I'm doing. Now I have all of my pins in place and it's looking pretty good to me. I'm going in with my hand sewing needle and I'm just going to do a loop stitch right over the top of those two pieces of fabric, making sure that I catch the bottom seam for lack of words, but the bottom thread where that serger thread is, so that none of that shows on the other side. I'll show you at the end. It'll make more sense. But yeah, I'm just going to go through the back half of that fabric and do a loop right through the front and continue that process all the way down. Okay, here's what I mean. What I'm showing you is that no serger threads are showing on that front side. Okay, so now I'm fitting this dress to my doll just to make sure I have a snug fit exactly the way that I want it. Now moving on to the cutest little bow ever. I'm totally freestyling this. You see me counting the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5. That is about 3 inches, I'm guessing. And I'm going to freestyle and just do a little cut right there in a little square so that I can use that to create my bow for the front of my dress. Here I've cut another little tiny piece so that I can wrap it around the centerpiece of my bow. You see me just folding it once, twice, 3 times, trifold. Now I'm going to hand shape my bow. Fold it over, almost to that other end. Take the other end and fold it over, back on top of the first piece. Put your finger in the middle and just kind of flex the fabric and move it around and get it to fold and bend just the way you want it. Bend it back like a little loop on both sides. This is what you're going to use to create that bow shape. And then once you create that bow shape, we'll secure it and wrap our piece in the middle and secure that as well. Okay, I'm now feeling confident that I have the shape that I want. It looks like it's going to be perfectly fine and be the cutest little bow that I could ever imagine. So now I'm going to secure that shape. I'm taking my hand sewing needle. Whoops, I'm sorry. Went off camera a bit, but I'll get back on track here in a minute. I'm taking my hand sewing needle and I'm just pulling it right through the center of those 3 layers of fabric. That's both sides of the folded bow onto the other back side. And I'm going to continue to do that until I secure everything in place. I'll secure it enough so that I can wrap my tiny little piece in the center and create the cutest little bow ever. Okay, I'm done securing, so you're gonna pinch it right there in the center. Just pinch, 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 pinch. Pinch it so that you get the bow shape, and then take your thread, it's still on that needle. Just wrap it right through that center. Wrap, you see? Wrap. Okay, wrap again. You can wrap it a few times, however many times that you want, until you feel like you have it secure in the bow shape that you want. Alright, so here's my other little piece that I cut out to wrap around the center of the bow. I took it to my sewing machine and I sewed right down the edge so that I can close it and it won't, unravel. So if you cut it a little too long and you feel like it's a little too long, that's okay. Don't worry. You can snip off whatever you don't need, and that's what I'll be doing here. I made it a little bit longer. That's fine. I'll wrap it around maybe once, and then I'm going to snip it and secure it. Sorry guys, I'm going to try to do a better job at staying front and center on camera on my next tutorial or video. There you go. I think that looks good. I really like that. So I am going to snip off the excess and sew it down. Okay, the bow is complete, and as you can see, I fit it to my dress right in the center, making sure that it's right in place and it looks fine. It's not crooked, it's not, all over the place. It's right where it needs to be. And I'm just going to go through the back half of that fabric and catch that back end of that bow and just keep sewing it just like I was sewing on a button. Just a little loop in and out, in and out, in and out, just to secure it to that dress. A little elbow grease. I needed some help getting it through that fabric. If you have a thimble for your thumb and for your fingers, that will probably help you a whole lot. I didn't have one handy, so I just took the edge of my scissors and pulled it right through. Let's speed this up a bit. And we're done. Look how cute that bow is. I love it. It is complete. The dress is complete. What you didn't see is I added Velcro to the back just to close the dress. Now you may have to adjust the back of the dress to fit your doll, and that's completely fine. Keep adjusting for the perfect fit. How cute is she? OMG. Tell me how you like it.